Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so while the media wants us laser focused on the Trump/Epstein connection, as they're grasping at straws, digging up new news, inventing as many conspiracy theories as they can, as they platform all kinds of people with ridiculous claims out of nowhere, just conveniently holding on to these claims for the moment where this becomes a Democrat narrative about Donald Trump. As all of this is happening, there's a massive moment coming out of Congress that the media is dead silent on, and that, frankly, I think helps clarify things and put things into quite clear perspective. I mean, we're talking about a total bombshell. We got an official whistleblower testimony that's now exposing the Biden administration as apparently being so negligent and so completely disinterested in protecting vulnerable migrant children that when they received a tip of a child that was in, let's say, YouTube-friendly words, a very, very dangerous, disgusting, horrible condition, they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Of course, until the Trump administration came in and started mobilizing efforts to save tens of thousands of these kids. So while the media is trying to paint Donald Trump as arguably the worst thing you could possibly imagine, what I'm leaning on is the track record, and I don't know a single president in my lifetime who has done more to tackle human smuggling, especially underage human smuggling, and this is yet again another example of that. Let's go ahead and add some more perspective to the conversation, the perspective or the angle that the media doesn't want me to know exists. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll with it. Alright folks, we got an absolutely insane moment in Congress that just dropped. I already laid out the context in the intro, so take a look.
Ms. Hopper, you work closely with trafficking victims and survivors. I'd like to explore the role that the NGOs have played in enabling the trafficking and exploitation of unaccompanied alien children. Under the last administration, what safeguards were put in place to protect vulnerable unaccompanied children?
I previously discussed the post-placement welfare checks, which consisted of 2 phone calls. Again, if the sponsor didn't answer, the case was no longer followed up on. But there was also a notice of concern hotline where people could report concerns about the unaccompanied child's safety. But what this administration found was from August 2023 to January of 2025, 65,000 calls went unanswered. Those calls spanned from complaints about stale bread all the way to being abused. One case where a child's call reporting that grown men were coming into his room at night and they were touching him. Nothing happened with that call. That call went unanswered until this administration took office, went through those 65,000 calls, made follow-ups, conducted a welfare check, and now that child has been rescued and that sponsor has been arrested. These are the safeguards that were put in place, but accountability and oversight was not.
Joe Biden's DHS reportedly did nothing with the calls. They just sat on it. That is until President Trump's team came in. The moment Donald Trump got back into power, his team started digging into the hotline. They went through every single report systematically, case by case, and what they found was kids being trafficked, kids being abused, abandoned, violated, and probably most important to the story and most relevant, completely forgotten under Biden's so-called compassionate immigration initiatives and policies. And so the Trump team came in and started rescuing them one by one. And you know what? In the intro I mentioned something about track record. Well, again, considering the current conversation that's going on here, I'd say stuff like this, well, it's pretty relevant.
And according to my research, which will very soon be revealed next week, the rescue so far 35,000 temporary kids. Hey, like that, according to this Hopper's research, which I find fascinating, and why I get it good, 70% of the
You're moving on the plane. It's at Mackenzie Airfield. Logistics are as yet undecided. Go in how you like, but go in with a good supply of ammunition, armor, and maybe even explosives. It's gonna get kinda heavy. Like I said before, the airfield is under Vagos control. They're using the plane to make trafficking runs across the border. That means it's already set up to take Reshkovsky out of the country. Limited radar visibility, plausible cover story. It's perfect. Don't let the fact that there are a bunch of angry drug dealers waiting for you affect how you go in, or actually do.
We're going to build out case files, run the case files, we're interviewing these 35,000 kids, and you're finding out exactly what the hell happened. how they ended up in the nightmare where they were. They were rescuing more. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. We're going to identify the children, we're rescuing the children, we're rescuing these children, and we're building out criminal files.
Some more background on the Vagos. Okay. Globalized, multinational, decentralized criminal network. Their principal interest is in drug trafficking, but they've diversified into mid-level distribution, end-user sales, and trafficking in other countries. You get caught killing coke, they throw the book at you. You're caught at a Captain Bar, a seaman, it's a slap on the wrist. And the market for large and danger rodent ejaculate is long lucrative.
human rights
Most of
victory.
the Vagos upper management is shot callers, if you like, are already incarcerated in the States and throughout Central and Latin America. They run the network on server farms at a relatively flat hierarchy at the top. So if you get one head off, there's 6 more waiting to bite.
But
One
there's
time I
absolutely
wanted to
nothing to be
manipulate
made about
criminal
children being
networks.
handed
As you
over
know,
to
I'm a criminal myself.
science.
I just
It's
like to weigh
absolutely so
Walmart.
vetted. You know, when
Criminal
Donald Trump was
Walmart.
separating
Those
children from
angles
their
can help us
families,
sell our
what he was
radar
actually
falling
doing
broke.
was
It's
getting
not something
them
that they would do, but it's
sponsors
the
to
kind of
make
thing the
sure that those
authorities
children were
believe
in
that they would do,
safe
which is all
hands.
that
And that's
really
where
matters.
hypocrisy
You get
gets
me?
absolutely
Okay.
nuclear levels. You know, we got the left, we got the media, we got the DNC. They're trying so hard to build this whole Epstein story for all it's worth after nearly a decade, really frankly almost 2 decades, doing their best to bury the story and completely ignore it. They want to link Donald Trump to Epstein at all costs, even though we know in the story that Donald Trump cut ties with Epstein nearly 2 decades ago, even though there's literally zero evidence of criminal activity from Trump's. And you know what? The other day, Nancy Pelosi called the Epstein files a big distraction. Remember that? Well, you know, maybe she was right. Maybe it is a distraction from the real scandal that the Biden administration turned a blind eye was knowing
Maintaining the
that
integrity of the
children
plane is the
suffer as they
priority
enacted
here.
their
Don't rush
globalist
this.
redefining of America. You know, these
Looks
Biden
like a shit
officials,
show
like
down there.
DHS
Clear
Secretary
the airstrip
Williams,
before
he
you
was
think about
less than
taking that
Republican
bird into the
Homeland Security.
sky. The plane gets shot up, we're back to Alpha.
I just wanted to ask you how it feels to see that
Keep it
the
up
United
down
States
there.
has
The more
their
noise you make at the
border
airstrip,
now
the
that
more
President
closer
Trump's
the
in
cover
office as
story
opposed to when
becomes.
he was Secretary of Homeland Security. Do you have any regrets facilitating open border search? Border talks even now on 95%. You regret a lot of that all the being a proposal in the United States search? Sure. You have anything to say? Like Maryland's Homeland Security Secretary? Facilitating open border?
Vagos cell phones are going loco, people. Expect more of them any second now. Remember, the mission is the plane.
You have anything to say about it? You have a brand about facilitating the track of all the migrant children that head over to the trust? How did you feel that the Biden administration business policy and people taking actively legally sport? And it's like, very often you have a people who want to before you get to right? You're fine with how you guys handle the border?
That's the reality. Most importantly, that's the contrast of the hard work, reason hard work, the president is possibly factors short of California. If you guys remember from Trump's first term, the Democratic Party was even leading initiatives to combat trafficking globally. But of course, that will never enter the conversation. The left will never give that credit because they're too busy rewriting the twisted narratives. They're too busy having to deal with
The gang task force better send us a thank you for this. Even more Vagos coming at you.
Possible. It's important context, folks. Who are innocent until proven guilty. And the idea that Donald Trump is guilty when there has been no legitimate credible evidence. Meanwhile, this is stupid. I mean, it just seems
Air traffic's
so
telling me the bird is airborne.
Anyways, that's
Stay at the airstrip and deal with any more Vagos that come at you. This
Awesome.
operation will not be compromised by blowback from this.
Felon son raged against Gordon Community and other Democrats who we believe are good cops.
And everybody around Gordon Murphy hurt. He is it's like, I don't know what he is. He's a brand. Cargo, last one of race team. He had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama was positive America that. He was junior speechwriter on Barack Obama's Senate staff. We're going to dine on the relationship with him. So here's $1 million.
What influence you take that out over? 2 weeks, we'll leak this to a sympathetic reporter, and they'll get fingered for the breakout.
And
Now
it's
clear
not
the area and clear up
unfair
any
also
stray
find out
traffickers you
that the
encounter.
Americans who want to deport the millions of illegals is bad for the country.
People are really upset about illegal immigration. How do you think those always gets to be? How do you think the move on people? What do you think Washington mission?
Alright,
Wow.
my people are waiting for the plane at LSIA.
Wow.
Lagos channels are totally dark. I would not expect any more action
Wow.
in Blaine County. Either come back to the city or take in the natural beauty of Vista Point.
President El Salvador and said, you need to send them back or I'm going to pay.
Okay, and while under ranges, we are learning how to proceed with audit after action review. Democrats lost the 2024 election,
Yeah.
but couldn't do anything that is mentioned. Well, Greg, I guess it's good that Joe Biden is raising on a podcast instead of going to a rager in the carpet.
I have so many mixed feelings. First, he's talking about illegals. I seem to remember from a police report, he tried to get the police office back over a missing gun by implicating illegals. Like he said, those guys over there, they're illegal. So he's not a scene when it comes there. But if you look at the Democrats, if you listen to him, what have the Democrats been trying to do? All 6 months, try to be authentic. They try to fake swear, do a lot of theater, not real swearing. You gotta give him, that guy is authentic, he's the real deal, and dare I say I like him. I can't think defending Jim and Joe, and Jim, his brother, right? Yeah. It's his dad, and I disagree with him on that. But he is wrong, he's looking after the establishment. And I'm thinking Democrats, especially Cardinal said that they're looking for their savior, this guy. He's the most direct, honest person the party has. He's very likable, and you have to understand, they all he's a drug addict. You have to understand about drug addicts and alcoholics. That guy managed to make millions and billions of dollars while on. And that's the secret, is that you have to be super competent when you're a junkie, or else people will disown you. So he actually works extra hard. If he's truly in recovery, he will be legitimately dangerous, just like RFK, who's beholden to no ideology whatsoever. That's my theory. I'm going with it. And you love the position.
There you go. Open and right. So, Jesse, I actually think you have a point with a lot of this. I mean, we really like Joe Biden, and said he's going to win, and tried to push him out for a month, and then they didn't want to go. They kept leaking stories, and Nancy Pelosi came around, and Clooney wrote that op-ed that finally had the ball moving. I mean, he's not wrong when he says they really didn't do much service.
When Roman emperors used to murder their political rivals, Katie, they used to not just murder the rival, they'd murder the entire family. Because if you leave the son alive, he'll spend the rest of his life seeking revenge. And they may have killed off Joe Biden, but Hunter Biden is very much alive. And make no mistake, everything he's saying is exactly what Joe Biden is thinking. This is
Good what I was thinking.
Correct. This is the guy the memo was about. This is a guy who doesn't give an F. He's macho, he's bold. To say that they're going to invade El Salvador to bring back the bad hombres, that's like left-wing Trump. And this is what they've been looking for. Gavin Newsom doesn't have an ounce of that kind of swagger, because that is real. I agree. We are in agreement there. The problem with the Democratic Party, the autopsy, whatever you want to call it, they don't even want to talk about Biden. They don't want to see Joe. They don't want to see Hunter. But this guy is going to be on a revenge tour, the likes of which we've never seen. And his dad is writing a book. So they're never going to get rid of him. The only way they do it, Tom Homan has to support the Biden family to go spend some time with them. And I'm
Harold, on an autopsy report, can Democrats really move forward if they don't acknowledge Kamala and Joe's participation in the last election? Because people see us cover up including the party. Or do you think they can just move forward without mentioning it?
We should just move forward and be honest. Now, I have to remind everybody around the table, when President Trump ran in 2016, there'd been an autopsy done by the Republican Party saying that they needed to appeal more after the loss to Barack Obama. They needed to appeal more to African American and Hispanic voters across the country. And President Trump, when he came down the escalator, had a very, very different theory of the case as he talked about illegals here and rapists.
thugs in the Republican Party exploded. A lot of them, and I'll be nice about it, exploded in curiosity. He exploded in anger. He connected. He knew what was going on in the country. People who win presidential races connect with voters. Now, I hope that I'm never in a position where my son has to defend me like Hunter did, but I admire someone who can his dad. I defend my dad that way as well, and anyone that can defend their son or their daughter who defend me like this. But I would remind everybody, including Hunter, two or three other things. One, if we had a different opinion on the border, we might have won. We didn't. We were wrong on the border. That was the most explosive issue in the campaign. Little boys playing little girl sports really rankle a lot of Americans, and we had no good answer. I remind everyone that when Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump debated, Mr. Biden didn't look like he knew where he was. But that's what he was able to recover from. Had he done a different interview to accept office, he didn't. So Democrats said, you can't do this. We need another candidate. Then you had Ms. Harris. Ms. Harris made the mistake of being asked a very basic question. In the middle of the election, it was about change. And was asked, what would you have done differently? Anything would be different if you did what? I can't think of anything you've done differently. In a change election, her name could have been Trump, Pence, Vance, Rubio, or Clinton. If you say that you're running and you are that what's happening if people don't like it, you're not really political. Donald Trump lost in 2020 because people wanted to move on to him. So as much as I love the energy and the passion, there's some basics in politics. You have to connect with people. You have to represent people. If Mr. Biden had done what he seems to be a generational president passing on, we would be having a conversation here right now. So as much as I admire the fire and the passion and the defense of your dad, at the end of the day, the voters spoke.
Yeah, there's a lot of passion. Actually, not passing around the table, not just once, so every 2 days. I just thinking about the setup they did for the interview with this, YouTuber, got over 3 million subscribers. I guess he's pretty popular, and Hunter Biden, what apparently is that he had a good connection with him. They sat for hours, but they sat in nature. The beautiful scene on the
It was his clothes on.
Right. Like, check it out. That's strange. Like, and just like, it's thrilling and passing to the point where we can't even air it in its entirety. I'll just say this because I know we're short on time. And unless the autopsy report also looks back and says, okay, all the increased regulation over that period of time made it impossible for small businesses in this country to thrive, unless they acknowledge the canceling of all of those federal oil leases all over the country that led to your high gas prices, unless that autopsy looks back at the attacking of the rich that greatly employs the lower to middle class, the American people who voted for Donald Trump are going to say nothing has changed with the Democrat Party.
You know what this autopsy is like? It's like a celebrity autopsy when they cite the cause of death as heart disease, hypertension, blood clots, liver failure, but underneath it all is one cause. We take it like chronic lifelong alcoholism. There is an underlying cause, what they are identifying as the secondary causes, and it's always going to be this identity politics, which states are things.
What you need, boss? Some wheels? I can bring them around.
All right, up next, the libs say democracy is dead because CBS dumped a $40 million loser.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.
It's coming at you. Okay, I got stuff to do.
Well, it's been 6 months now since President Trump kicked off what he called the golden age of America, at the start of his second term. And despite all the critics, 47's got plenty of wins on his plate to boast about. Let's break it down. That big, beautiful bill he promised, tariffs, they pulled in a whopping $100 billion in revenue. And illegal border crossings have dropped to record lows. Here's what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says about that.
I think you've all seen, in 6 months' time, the president has delivered on those 2 core campaign promises. Inflation is now running at a 2.1% annual rate. You look at our southern border, look at the numbers. Just last month, 0 illegal aliens were released into our country. And then look at what the president has done on the world stage. He has ended wars, wars like India and Pakistan. He continues to work aggressively to end the war in Russia and Ukraine.
But don't just take the White House's word for it. President Trump's success at the border is showing up in the data. June saw the lowest month of border encounters ever recorded, in the second straight month with 0 illegal aliens released into the country. And yet, the Dems still won't give Trump credit. LA Mayor Karen Bass telling ABC's Martha Raddatz his crackdown isn't working.
If you ask me, is there anything that they have done good in terms of immigration? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that the viewpoint has been punitive, has been let's make it as miserable as possible so that these people don't come.
So what does that tell you, Harold? Is your party going to acknowledge any of these wins, border, economy, trade, or otherwise?
So it's good to be with you. Hope you had a great weekend. I give the president high marks on the border, like a lot of the polls. So I give the president high marks on being the first president in my lifetime with the enormous coordination we had with the Israelis to be able to set back. We can argue over 6 months, 6 years, it was a success and set back the nuclear program. I give him great credit to get our European allies in NATO to spend 5% on defense. I now hope he catalyzes it, leverages that to say to Putin, you may get Crimea, but if you attack anything else, we're going to let them in NATO right away, but I'll let the president and his team negotiate that. And as you said, it's active spending bill. But Sandra, Democrats and I are not following. The polling right now shows, and I said this when Joe Biden was in office, when his team would run around saying the economy's going great, things are going well. I said, some of the numbers may say that, but the polls don't say that. People don't believe they're doing well. If you look at some of the polling, surprising to me, the president's underwater on the economy. Surprising to me, he's underwater on immigration. My theory on immigration, if we support him hugely on the border, I'm part of the group that supports him on the border. But I think we get to, and I say this all the time on the show, the hierarchy of deportations. Who gets deported once you get beyond the worst being the first? I think a lot of Americans are wrestling with that issue. So if I
there ain't no issue. Everybody needs to be deported.
6 months. I think that the next 2 weeks probably for many people, including business leaders in the country, whether or not the president's able to get tariff and trade agreements with some of our allies and even some of those who are not our allies, I think will even help influence that economy number, which I was surprised by. I didn't think the president would be underwater as much, particularly since the tax and spending bill got passed. But these are American people who are living their lives who are responding to these polls.
Well, I suppose the polls can come and go, and they can change in a heartbeat, but the data really speaks for itself, Jesse. The Democrats continue to not deny that the president's policies at the border are working. The economy, as the Wall Street Journal put it in a recent headline, is regaining its swagger.
Well, I don't know why Harold mentions polls. Trump's going to be president for life. Isn't that what they said? Well, who cares about re-election? We're just going to stay there. There's a lot of great things happening, and we'll get to that. But there are certain things that I am not satisfied with so far in the first 6 months. We haven't invaded Greenland yet, and the clock is ticking. I also want to see the Fort Knox tour. Whatever happened to touring Fort Knox? Is the gold there? Is it not there? We need to know. Paulie P. has yet to be indicted on insider trading, and every day that goes by with him as a free man is a day that corruption moves on. The tax cuts weren't deep enough. And they should have been much deeper. And I'm not saying that from a selfish perspective at all, Harold. Stop looking at me. What perspective are you talking about? From a policy perspective, that would have been much better. And he should have hired more Fox hosts. The fact that he couldn't find an extra job somewhere for Will Cain, I mean, have you seen the 4 o'clock? I'm missing Caputo at this point. It's gotten so bad. But behind the scenes, there's so many good things happening. We are now breaking ground on a rare earth mineral mine in Arizona. We're starting the first nuclear power plant in 15 years. We're selling an enormous amount of natural gas to the Europeans, and it's not even 2% they paid their NATO dues up. It's now 5%. AI data centers, they're doing ribbon-cutting ceremonies every single day. We are revitalizing American shipbuilding. But it is interesting, this media now are admitting that the president does control the border. And it has nothing to do with Congress. So I'd be interested to see the next Democrat president, when they get to the White House, and if they open the floodgates again, that has to be covered as a choice. He cannot blame Trump. They cannot blame Congress or funding. The next Democrat president that comes in and they reverse Donald Trump's border policies and we have another invasion, the media has to treat that as a decision the president is making. Because now we know he has the tools to do it without Congress. I promise I won't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I like that.
To Jesse's point, I mean, even Martha Raddatz in that interview we just showed a bit of says whatever they're doing is certainly working at the border itself. An acknowledgement that, to Jesse's point, the president is controlling the border. It proves it was all a choice. And when you take care of the border, you then focus on interior enforcement, this deportation task force they're implementing in cities across the country, getting rid of criminal illegal aliens, but also really help take pressure off the public service systems, taxpayer-funded systems like hospitals, schools, public transportation, etc. So that is a long-term thing that will play out in health. I always used to say that working in DC is like dog years, one feels like 7, but based on how much Trump has accomplished in 6 months, we're going to need another comparison. And these are not gimmick achievements. They are short-term, politically popular for the most part, and long-term, they help the country and the world. Whether it's the AI that they pushed forward last week, whether it's the Bitcoin reserve they're doing, whether it's these agreements for NATO to pay more, when during his first term he was accused of wanting to end NATO. These are things that are long-term, not short-term. And Democrats can talk about poll numbers slipping on the border issue maybe by 1 or 2%. Their approval rating is in the 30s. And they're having a very hard time figuring out where they stand as a party. So the president's doing pretty well. And also on the border issue, it's easy to do the things on the surface, but when it comes to getting people out of these communities and the media onslaught of it's not fair to get rid of people here illegally, those are the hard things the president is doing. And they tap into people's emotions. But he's doing the things he said, and he set the bar for future politicians to campaign and then execute, not just campaign and then not do what they say. Interesting. So what has been your favorite part of the 6 months of the golden age?
Well, there's that time I was in my was it Shakespeare said the fish rots from the head? That's why her name is Karen Bass. It is amazing when a stupid person stumbles into the answer that they've always missed. It's like a blind person getting the Wheel of Fortune puzzle right. That's what happened when she said how awful it was that illegals are being faced with punitive measures. She actually said punitive as though that's a bad thing. Punitive measures is the exact bedrock of law and order. You discourage law breaking with punishment. How did the mayor just discover this and see it as a bad thing? I'm convinced she's a complete cutout. She's not even real, because everybody understands this basic principle. And if she doesn't, then it tells you why Democrats needed Trump more than Republicans did. Because if you notice, there really isn't a lot of pushback on Trump. I mean, you get the usual clowns on CNN, MSNBC, and the Adam Schiffs and the Jeffries. But from most Democrats and most people, everyone knew there had to be a change, but they also knew they couldn't do it themselves. They were too beholden to activists, special interests, identity groups, dogmatists. Trump gave them an out. He came in, I'll be the villain. You know what? I'll take the heat. I'll save women's sports. I'll close the border. I'll loosen up regulations so people can start making some money. And you can say that you hate it, even though you really like it. It's like when you wake up the next day and you're relieved that the bartender cut you off when he did. They needed somebody to cut them off because they couldn't do it themselves. And so now it's a twofer. They get to blame Trump and hate Trump and benefit from his policies. Meanwhile, the Dems are kind of like a softball machine. They're always throwing these lobs, big, fat, slow pitches. Trump just wails them over the fence. What do? They attacked him in the beginning about gas and eggs. 2 things that you can fix right away, and he does. Then you have the tariff thing. They said it was terrible. Every new country comes to the table. He has a thing like every 3 days. It's like a couple other guys will come in, one after the other. Then if they come out and they say, oh my God, look on immigration, look at this Maryland dad, look at this woman who was kidnapped by ICE. And then you end up with a counter story, which is more devastating or real. You end up with a rapist being arrested, a pedophile being arrested, a gay member shooting a cop in the face. So every single thing that they do ends up having an answer for and them. So I think that's why they're kind of relieved that the golden age is here.
When are you going back to Miami?
Me and Will Kane are going. It's clothing optional.
Because that was my favorite new film.
You guys, click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.
know that plus you got